Hello there, everyone. Welcome to Storytime. I'm Dr. Jennifer Bird. I'm a biblical scholar, and I care very much about what people do with what they find in the Bible. And I enjoy doing this little storytime thing. Try to do it every week. And sometimes I do storytime, and the story is a biblical passage that I'm just giving my full feminist, materialist commentary on. And sometimes it's bringing on a scholar and having a conversation with them. So today is the latter. We have Dr. Josh Bowen with us today, and I don't have anything I need to say up front. I don't think we have a couple really great scholars coming up soon as well. Another not not in comparison to Josh. Additionally, interesting folks that I think you'll also really like. Dr. Francesca Stavrokopoulou and Robin Walsh actually are the next two guests coming on. So I am not going to do all the intros because you all know this guy. Most of you already know this guy, I should say. Dr. Josh Bowen, thank you for joining us today.
Of course. And after mentioning those two, the former thing that you said was absolutely precise. Much better.
Oh, no,
I'm jealous. I'm jealous. That's gonna be it's gonna be two great scholars coming up.
They are really lovely human beings, aren't they? I mean, I finally got to meet Robin actually at SBL this year, and just in passing, and just both seem to be really lovely people. So it'll be a fun conversation. But just to be clear, in case folks don't know, I met you through the slavery panel that we did almost 2 years ago now.
Wow.
That was, I know, it was March, I think, right? Someone, I don't even know who reached out to me to include in that group, but that's how I first interacted with you, and still have yet to meet you in person. But yes, I think of you as the digital Hammurabi guy, even though that's not your only gig, I think. Would you like to say anything? I know you're a Johns Hopkins guy. I don't know. I never know, to be honest, if people watching this care about our education. Do you know what I mean? And we're going to talk about that a little bit. But is there anything up front you'd like to say, just to give people a taste of who you are before we jump into the story?
I mean, I think probably the most important thing about me is I'm married to Megan Lewis, who is the host of Bart Ehrman's Misquoting Jesus podcast. So, it's my claim to fame.
I love it. I love that you say that, and you kind of mean it when you say that. You're not just saying that. And I just want you to know that when we had to reschedule last time because of family things that developed for you on your end, and I said, not in public, but I made a comment about that, family stuff, and several people were like, "Yep, he's so good like that. He's he's got his priorities. We like that about him." So, people see that. People see and appreciate that you love your family. So I think that's really cool. So Josh Bowen, Mr. Atheist Handbook of the Old Testament, 2 volumes. Yes, 2 volumes at this point. I would love to hear more about you. I know bits and pieces, and I see some of your work in terms of videos online, but I am curious about the backstory. What is it? And when I ask people to come here, I'm curious about what are the parts of who you are that explain why you do what you do, right? So your upbringing, where there are things about you as a kid that kind of shone a light on this being in your future, interests along the way, anything like that. And the list of books that you shared with me.
Very telling.
Very telling. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy is such a language guy. It's hilarious. I love it.
Such a weirdo.
Nobody else has shared a grammar. Nobody else has put a grammar on the list yet. I love it. I love it that they were like at least 3 grammars on this list. Okay. So over to you. Like, what would you like to tell us about yourself and your story that has led you to this place?
Yeah, I think that probably the best way to sort of sum up who I was and who I hope I have become is I was probably the nicest, kindest, sweetest bigot that you could ever meet. And while that sounds, antithetical,
no, but I love that you, yeah. Go. Do say more. I think we know what you mean by that, but please say more.
Yeah, I was, like, incredibly homophobic,
Oh,
um,
okay.
I terribly, terribly misogynistic,
Mm.
more
Mm.
this, than I, of course, ever could have realized,
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
and thought, like, "No, of course, I'm none of those things. I love people." And
Right.
I think that the reason that that for me, why that's so important to realize looking back is that now when I know, and you know, right, several people, I'm sure many people online that you would say are like when they look in the mirror or when they lie down at night, they think, "I'm a good, loving, caring person. I want the best for people." But they are like part and parcel who I was
Mhm.
to a T,
Mhm.
and they just don't know what they don't know
Uh-huh.
about, um, what they're actually what their positions that they don't understand really are. And I think the books that I gave sort of, to me anyway, probably not overtly, but to me sort of reveal that a little bit. And I
Ah,
could talk about
yeah,
that transition, but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's sort of how I would characterize
That is
where I was.
that is really, um first of all, yes, and thank you for saying it, right? That and I imagine, some people, in the audience have some names in mind that they could probably, point to. But uh, that's a really honest thing to say. Was that because of being in an evangelical space?
Yeah, so I grew up very, very fundamentalist,
Fundamentalist
evangelical.
even okay. Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, I was saved from hell
Uh-huh.
when I was 5 years old.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
you were steeped in it. Okay.
I was one of those guys.
Yeah.
And, like,
Huh.
I guess that's sort of so very, very quickly, um, my grandfather was a licensed Baptist minister. He was very, very proud that he was not ordained because that would have made him part of the system.
That's right.
Yeah, he was a maverick, right? And, he didn't just, believe things because the church told him to believe them. He really, really, understood the Bible, and so, when I was a kid, he was my, my teacher,
Okay.
and we used to play this game. And I have MS, so I don't have a lot of memories from when I was young, but
Okay.
the few that I have, that they must be very meaningful.
Uh-huh.
One of the ones that I have is I used to play this game, Who Am I? And my grandfather would say, like, "Okay, I was told by God to build a boat, and I brought all the animals on and survived the flood. Who am I?" Right?
Uh-huh.
And he would get very specific. Like one of the answers was Doeg,
Oh,
right?
oh, wow.
So
You
like
knew the Bible.
that's where we were. Um, so
Gosh.
like, but yeah, I remember having a conversation one time with John Collins up at Yale, and I was talking to him, and somehow fundamentalism or evangelicalism came up, and he said, "Say what you will about like evangelicals. The one thing that I have found is true about them is that they know their Bible,
Mhm,
right?"
mhm.
And while he said that in the context of all of the negative things that
Right,
can
right,
come
right.
from that, it was like, if there's a silver lining, he said, I've never had a student where, I've said, turn to Hosea and they floundered, right? They just,
Right.
they just go right there.
Yep.
And unfortunately, what that did for me is it made me so arrogant.
Okay, okay.
And I think that's probably where those first two books that I listed sort of come in.
Okay.
And they were Things That Differ by Cornelius R. Stam, and um, The Plan of Satan by
Oh,
Keith Blades.
okay.
And you've probably never heard of either of those. And if you've heard of anything even remotely adjacent to that, it's hyper dispensationalism.
Okay.
Okay. So these were they were part of different factions of the hyper dispensationalist movement. Now, they
Okay.
would not have called themselves that. They were
Yes.
the correct dispensationalists,
And every time
right?
these labeled like
Yeah.
millenarian or whatever and
Yeah.
I just kinda glaze over because I don't
Right.
really I don't is dispensationalism the, I don't even know what to even begin like, get the ball rolling on that. Can you clarify this?
So,
I'm
but
probably not the
yeah,
only
but
one.
basically, what dispensationalism itself says that it's sort of trying to answer the question of why the law, or but primarily, why does
Oh,
Paul seem to be going to Gentiles when Jesus and everybody else is going to, the nation of Israel?
right.
What explains that? So dispensationalists say, yeah, like, depending on what kind of dispensationalist you are, the kind I was, said, yeah, everything from Genesis to Acts chapter 13
Uh-huh.
or Acts chapter 9, depending on,
Uh,
that's all for Israel, right? And then everything from
oh,
James
oh,
forward, that's all to Israel during the
oh,
tribulation period.
oh.
It's the stuff that's in, Romans, um, yeah, that's right. There it is. And I'm sorry, we're gonna,
Oh, that's fine. Yeah,
I don't know if you could hear that.
a little
She's
bit, yep, it's all good. Do we need
sorry.
a pause for you
No, no,
to
no, no, no.
okay, okay,
She's okay.
okay.
But basically, uh, I'm trying to think of a good example, but I can't think of one at the moment.
Okay.
But if the way that books like this, Things That Differ, these were people like, I don't even know what their educational level
Right,
was.
right.
Sam,
Yeah.
like Keith Blades, they took pride in the fact that they weren't formally trained. In fact, Stam was part of
Oh,
a group, I think called the Berean Bible Society, that they had the option. They had a college, and they had the option of getting accredited. And they said, no way, we're not going to have the state come in and tell us how to teach the Bible. Um, and what ended up happening is it's a whole system that ties together. And I promise I'm going somewhere with
no,
this. I'm sorry.
I'm enjoying this. Trust me, it's fine.
There's this whole system that ties together. And so and that system has verses from everywhere
Uh-huh,
in the
uh-huh.
Bible.
Right, right.
Now, uh, the connections between them,
Total.
looking back, were tenuous at best. But
Like a word links them together, like a
yes,
similar word?
that's right. Oh, look, the shepherd here in Isaiah, shepherd here in Matthew, they must be the same.
Yeah.
Hello, Nora. Do you want to come say hi? Oh, this
No.
is
Oh my
Nora.
goodness.
Can you say
Hi.
hi? Hi.
How are you?
Can you say you are one half of trouble? This is her twin brother Jasper
Okay.
is walking around here somewhere. But okay, Sal is going to take you downstairs. Okay. Yeah, I did. Can you say bye?
Bye,
I
Nora.
love you. I love you so much.
Dress,
Go,
yeah.
go, go, go.
Come on. We're gonna eat dinner. You want chicken nugget?
Awesome.
So
Yeah, so the shepherd, we're doing this
yeah,
very tenuous connection thing going on.
but what that meant was, if you challenged me on the Bible,
Mhm.
I had this mindset that formal education is bad.
Right, right. I
Right?
had some of that in relation to religion for sure. Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
right. And
Mhm.
if you were formally educated, you became part of the sheep,
Yes.
right? You're part of the masses.
Okay.
But we had the real knowledge, right? It's very Gnostic, I guess, in that sense. Not that
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
certainly not an expert in Gnosticism,
No.
but so take all that with a grain of salt.
Yes. Right.
Um, but I like the I think probably the height of my hubris was I remember I went to a church, and I used to do this all the time. I go to a new church, it was like a Baptist church, and I went in to speak to the pastor, and the pastor had like seminary education, and he had this wonderful library, in his office. And I said, "Yeah, I don't think you understand what you're teaching."
I love that
And
you
he was
actually went into one of these guys and said this. Okay, keep going.
he was very kind, right? And he said, "Okay." And I said, "So, like, what do you do with a because water baptism was the big thing. That was our thing,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Water baptism, spirit baptism, two distinct things. Anyway, so it was like our hobby horse.
Okay. Okay.
And because Acts 2:38, Peter says, "Repent and be baptized,
That's
every
right.
one of you, in the name of Jesus Christ." So baptism was part of salvation,
Absolutely.
right? And so, like, anyway, so I said, "What do you do with Acts 2:38?" And he said, "Well," and he started to reference a very popular commentary, and I said, "Let me just stop you right here." I said, "I know what all of these books say about baptism, but you don't know what I know about baptism."
You said that.
Yeah.
That is really impressive.
Is it? It's impressive is one word.
I mean, you said the thing out loud, right? There are a lot of people who think it, right? It takes courage.
Courage, stupidity, like,
both.
I've heard it both ways. But it was that confidence, if there was a silver lining, I suppose, it was that confidence that sort of motivated me to, while I was in the Air Force, to get my bachelor's degree. Of course, I got it from Liberty University, so
Did
very,
you?
very, very evangelical conservative school. For those that are listening and maybe don't know. And then I got commissioned as a chaplain candidate in the Air Force.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I went to seminary at Capital Bible Seminary, which is now part of Lancaster Bible College.
Okay.
And so again, another.
Yeah, I was going to say, if people don't know, anytime you say Bible College is a part of the name of an institution, that's a signal that it's very conservative, fundamentalist, kind of. Yeah.
So what that did for me was because they knew at my seminary, and I got a master's in theology while I was there, so it was like 126 semester hour graduate degree.
Right. Yeah, it's a long.
Yeah, it took me 6 years full time to get it, but I say that because they knew that things like source criticism, right, were just nonsense.
Oh, right. Okay.
Like when it says Isaiah, like that's Isaiah.
Isaiah, right? There's no conversation.
Moses wrote these 5 books, right? So they didn't have to be encumbered with all of the nonsense work that actual Hebrew Bible specialists have to deal with, right?
Right.
So then how do you fill those 126 semester hours, right?
You're not actually doing a lot of theological.
What am I doing? Languages. So like, I took course after course after course, and I took it with people like Mark Meyer, who got his PhD from Catholic University in comparative Semitics.
Okay.
So like, I was taking Hebrew every year, but then I took different forms of Aramaic. I took Biblical Aramaic. I took Targumic Aramaic. Then I ended up taking some Akkadian. Of course, I took 6 years of Greek.
6 years? 6 years of Greek? Holy mother!
So like I translated through Hebrews in a semester.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's
so like
the book of Hebrews. You worked through the book of Hebrews in one of your divinity school level courses. That's just really impressive.
It's like a Hopkins legomenon every 5 words, you know.
And a
So
Hopkins
frustrating.
legomenon, for people who don't know, is something that shows
Oh,
up
yeah,
only here, right?
right. And
Which makes
so,
it very difficult to translate, people. I'm just
oh
trying to
my
be
gosh,
clear about
yeah,
why
right.
this is tricky. Okay, sorry.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
So
That's a
what?
lot of Greek. Okay.
So I think the way that one of my Hopkins professors described me, he was very to the point. Is he said, "Josh, you're a very powerful computer, but there's not a lot on the hard drive."
How fascinating
I was like,
metaphor.
"Oh, okay, thank you." But he meant it in a positive way because I kind of came to Hopkins
Mhm.
not knowing anything except the languages.
Very well. Yeah.
So that
Huh.
made me a really good candidate
Huh.
to, to there wasn't a lot to unravel, I guess.
Oh, like theologically speaking? Is that
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
because you
right.
really didn't have theological formation
That's
at a
right.
divinity, like, yeah, at the graduate school level, because they
You
just
know, like,
you knew everything already. You came in
that's
knowing
right.
all the yeah,
You
okay.
know, like we used Millard Erickson's systematic theology or Hodge. You know, I read through that. I
Oh, good
read
God.
through
Okay.
Thiessen. You know, but you know, we learned all the basic defenses of the Trinity or the basic defenses of the resurrection. Yeah, but you know, the reality is like there just wasn't a lot to undo there.
Right. So does that mean that you didn't have, like, a course in church history, for instance? Like,
I did.
but it was still much more positivistic.
Yes, and it was memorize these dates,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
That's what it was about. It was memorize these dates,
Okay.
and
Ecumenical councils, things like that.
that's right. So, but and the reality is, like for me, it was very much use it or lose it. So I took 2 semesters of church history. It was very advanced. It was very difficult,
Yeah.
but it was just because it was a bunch of memorization. And then I don't care about church history, right? Like I was not that guy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you know,
It
within
just
a
left.
year that was gone.
Yep. Yep.
But
And because it's a lot to
yeah,
cover in a year, right? 2
yeah,
semesters and so many people and things and places and events and
yeah,
schisms and
yeah.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
so that brought me to Hopkins, where of course I deconverted in my first semester, which then opened the
Seriously?
door. Yeah.
Then
Uh,
and sorry, in your first semester, okay, so what happened? How did you go from
mm,
like, it took me some time is what I'm getting at.
yeah.
It takes most people more than a semester.
Yes, yeah, yeah, well,
I'll just be clear.
I think the big thing about my position as a fundamentalist was it was an on off switch.
Uh-huh.
And
Okay.
what I mean, I guess, by that is if the text is inspired by God and inerrant, and that inerrancy extends to grammatical morphemes and like historical, like everything that the text says had to have happened in the way that it says it happened. My brand of Christianity was there can't be a like a chink in the armor.
Right.
If one thing falls, so fall they all, right?
It's not a slippery slope for you, it's an all and nothing.
That's
It's
right.
yeah, okay, okay. So there was
So
no room for nuance.
none.
Okay, so you had to let it go, or you were pleased to let it go, or you were
No, definitely
struggling?
not.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
Definitely
yeah,
not. So
yeah,
that
okay.
first semester, I studied. You know, I was studying archaeology with Glenn Schwartz, and but the and I took some Hebrew courses, but and Akkadian obviously, but my my most meaningful course probably in this regard was Kyle McCarter was teaching the history of Syria Palestine,
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
and I just spent week after week going, like, that can't be right. And I remember every week, like, thinking, well, I mean, you know, come on, like, the apologetics would kind of creep
Totally,
in.
totally. But it was this was too powerful of a
Yeah,
counter for you to
yeah.
okay.
Because like Kyle McCarter's obviously no dummy. And I'm taking Mesopotamian archaeology with like one of the world's leading archaeologists, and
Okay.
he's saying all the same things.
Okay.
And then I'm taking, Akkadian, and so I'm having to look at these old cuneiform tablets, and it's like that all of these things can't be overlapping with the same data points, and they're all wrong. Right? That doesn't make a lot of sense.
It
And so
doesn't if
what
you're mhm.
well, I'm sorry.
No, I was just like, yeah, if you're a reasonable person, no, it doesn't,
Right.
right? But
Right.
some people can be resistant. So
Indeed. And I
Mhm.
think in any other context, I probably would have been as well.
Okay,
But
yeah.
like these were
These guys.
people that I knew were authoritative in the
Uh-huh.
field.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah.
And so I remember I was sitting in a history of Syria Palestine, and he was talking. We'd gotten down into the Amarna period, and we were just moving past the Amarna period into like the Bronze Age collapse, late Bronze Age collapse.
Okay. And just for just because can you give us quick dates,
Yeah.
Amarna
Yeah,
and then
sure. So for
yeah.
Amarna period is like the 14th century BCE. So this is when, Egypt and Hittites and
Okay.
Assyria, Babylonia,
Yeah.
the Aegean, they're all like these major powers, the Great Powers Club, and they're all writing letters to each other. There's all this.
Right.
They're all brothers. They consider themselves brothers. It's all this international diplomacy,
Uh-huh.
and it all kind of collapses right around 1200. And
Hmm.
during this collapse, you have a group coming down from the Aegean called the Sea Peoples. We see them in the textual record, and we see them
Mhm.
archaeologically.
Mhm.
And one of the groups of the Sea Peoples, Kyle McCarter's teaching us this in his slow, sort of methodical way, and he says are the Peleset. Well, the Peleset are the Philistines in the Bible. Well, like that couldn't be true because I've read Genesis
Right.
and I've seen the Philistines. That's a long time, right? Before 1200. And it was that piece that was like the final, it was the straw,
Oh. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what it did, and this is an important nuance that I say when I go on to like channels where people are very clearly either evangelical Christians or Christians, but they're trying to nuance it.
Uh-huh.
I say it's not that all of this data to me like proved Christianity false. That's not what it did.
Yeah.
What it did is it proved my interpretive framework, my interpretive model could not be correct. Because what people will ask me, I have a good friend who's a Catholic, very, very nice guy, very intelligent, very thoughtful.
Mhm.
And he says, he said to me, so why didn't you move into like orthodoxy
Mm.
or something more progressive? And I said,
I'm sorry,
because,
I'm laughing. I have to laugh at that for a moment. Orthodox.
well, yeah,
It is. But
from where I was, it was
yes,
more,
it
it was
was.
more
Yeah.
progressive, right?
I just have to laugh for a moment. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
And I said, well, the best that I can explain it was that at that point, this system had failed, right? This fundamentalist system, that can't be true. And it made me essentially take this step back and look at the data points that I was accumulating and say, okay, what model best accounts for these data points? And now, I mean, I'm saying this in the midst of studying like 70 hours a week or something,
Right.
at Hub. So, like, it's not like I had lots of time to sit there and, you know.
Right.
So it was like, okay, well, I mean, like, is there a form of Christianity that might answer this? But, well, I mean, maybe, but I was already very predisposed to think all of those progressive people weren't Christians.
They were totally yes, clueless,
So,
didn't understand things, and
yeah.
yeah.
So
It's
like
just
the idea that I was going to become that, like that wasn't happening. And so it was just like, okay, well, I mean, it seems like the best answer for this is just, like this religious thing maybe isn't true. Maybe there is no God. Like, who knows? And so I like fell back into this, like, it might have been, is it igtheism where it's like, I don't care? I mean, maybe that's apatheism or something. I don't know. Like, is that a word, apatheism?
I have no
Like,
idea.
I was like, I just don't care, right? I'm apathetic to this. I have Sumerian to learn, right? So
Totally. Yes, I don't have time for this. Yeah.
right. So that's where I went through grad school. It's what was really interesting about it is, and then I'll shut up. But
I brought you on to not shut up. That's okay.
I would say the bulk of, at least a major section of the faculty in the Ancient Near Eastern Studies department, like, they identified as Christians, right? And like, never once in I took a course with Kyle McCarter on Genesis. Like, never once did questions come up about, like, is this historically reliable, or so, like, what about the Tower of Babel? Is that like, it's like, what? Why? That's a weird question. And so after that, it was just like, I had way too much to think about. And I just really didn't. Honestly, I just didn't care until I graduated, and Megan and I started this YouTube channel. Then people are like, "Well, are you an atheist, or are you an agnostic?" And I don't know. You tell me, right? How do you define atheist? How do you define agnostic?
Yeah.
You tell me. I'll tell you what I am. So, yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm mulling over which question to ask you next. So wait, when did you finish at Johns Hopkins, your PhD?
2017.
Oh, okay. Okay. I thought it was farther back than that. Okay. Because you're just so knowledgeable. I just
That's very generous.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yeah, you've done a lot. You've done a lot actually with your stuff. So that's with the knowledge you have acquired, you've done some really incredible things with it. Yeah. Can I just ask very briefly, where did that happen in this timeline? Because I don't know.
Yeah. So I had finished up my coursework. I'd taken my comprehensive exams. So I had life again.
You could breathe.
The possibility of it, right?
Go for a walk. Yeah.
And I should just do a stream on our channel about my experience with comprehensive exams. Anyway, so we started into I think that's, sorry, now my memory's just so bad. Anyway, Megan came as a prospective student. And so we, my friend Caleb Howard, who's at Tyndale, he was like my doppelganger, I guess, at Hopkins. Like, we were attached at the hip.
Yeah.
We and another Assyriologist student went out to lunch with her because she was coming into the Assyriology program, or applying for it.
Yeah.
And I was just smitten.
First glance.
I mean, like, Megan, I am the kind of person that, I don't really know how to explain this correctly. I'm sure there's a term for it, but I don't tend to see women as, like, in that way until they're very nice to me and I find out that they're brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, once that happens, then I start to, like, they enter that space, that potential, potential space. I don't know what to call that. At least possibly enter that. Anyway, it takes those things. So when Megan came, she was so nice. She was so sweet, and she smiled, and then it was obvious that she was just brilliant.
Yeah.
And anyway, of course, she got accepted.
Right.
And so I remember the first week. the first week that she was there, all of our books were down on D level, down on the bottom level, and I I just had a feeling she was down there, right? Because everybody, all the students are down there. If they're not in class, they're down on D level, and so I'm just like walking through the stacks, like a kid walking down the grocery aisles, like looking for their mom.
Uh-huh.
That's what it was like. I was just like looking down, and then I saw her, and I happened to kind of like walk. Oh, hey, fancy meeting you here. And then I said, like she should have hated me. It was so awful. But I was like, could I like show you the books? I could like explain how the library works.
That's awesome.
I mean, it's like, hey, our first real interaction by ourselves. Let me mansplain library to you. God, she was so patient.
Was she?
Like, oh, yeah, that would be really great. These are books. And that's a book there that I like. There are more over here that you might be interested in. God, such a doofus. But yeah, anyway, I ended up
Wow.
teaching her. I ended up teaching her Akkadian while I was there because I taught Akkadian for a semester and then taught Sumerian for a semester, and
Okay.
she was in both of those classes.
Okay.
And
Awkward.
yeah, so we just kind of ended up. She took pity on me, is what I
That's
have
what
to
you say.
believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was like, "Oh, poor guy, what an idiot,"
Let's give him some pity, a pity date.
Right.
Yeah.
God, so terrible.
Oh.
Anyway, so
Wow.
yeah,
That is quite a story.
yeah.
First
And
semester, first week of the semester. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, to be kind of serious for a minute, like, because I think this is important to say, it's absolute shit that I was able to finish my PhD and she wasn't, because the system is so stacked against women in academia. And like, it'd be like, she obviously she could tell you about this far more than I could, but just from my outside perspective, she had to decide, do I have a kid?
Yeah.
Or do I get a PhD? That's where it ended up.
Yeah, that doesn't.
And it was awful. It was awful.
Yeah.
So, because sorry, I'll be quiet. She is vastly more intelligent than I am. And I've just had the opportunity to finish.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I don't even know what to call it. Depressing, frustrating, makes me angry.
Mm-hmm.
Makes me very sad.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Yeah. Now I'm looking forward to talking with her because I don't know the story. Yeah, I didn't know the details. I just knew that there had to be a pretty incredible reason that she wouldn't have been, completing.
Yeah, I mean, like the short version of it is she had like 4 chapters of her dissertation written.
Jesus.
And
what?
She went, yeah.
Oh my God, that's just even worse than I realized. You know what I mean? Like
it wasn't just like all but dissertation and then, oh my gosh, dissertations are hard. She had like 4 chapters of this thing done.
And just for people to know, usually dissertations have about 6. I don't know in your field if it's
that's
about the
where
same.
she was.
No.
But basically what she was forced to decide was, either she's going to spend a year to a year and a half, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, finishing this dissertation, because there were certain things that she had to do to get those last couple of chapters written.
Okay.
or have a family? And she said, I want a family. Because we lived like an hour and 40 minutes at this point from campus.
Oh, geez.
So she was going to have to like drive up
Gotcha.
and stay during the week. That was the other that was the other part of it, right? She would have to be away from me for 6 of the 7 days out of the week. And I mean, some people might count that to be like on the positive side. We could get away from Josh that would be great. But she didn't for whatever reason. And yeah, so yeah, it was just it was bad.
Yeah.
So
okay.
anyway.
Well, thanks for that.
Sure.
Thanks for for saying that. And I, I do have lots of questions, but I will actually ask them of her. To follow up on that. Yes, there's major sacrifice that she chose there for the sake of having a different piece of her life be as meaningful as she wanted it to be. Yeah. I appreciate knowing about that and knowing how you two met and a little bit of that story. Can we get back to other things about you and the way your mind works? And I think someone just made a reference. I can't remember why you should care about ancient Sumerian is what I called this stream, right? And I just try to put something that's about you, the person, and whether or not we actually answer the question is kind of doesn't matter to me. But
well, actually, I think that's probably I could go that direction.
Can we go that direction and maybe? Yeah.
Because I actually part of my journey is what gets you to Sumerian.
Okay, awesome.
So I don't know if it comes across because it's hard for me to see that, but I'm not a very confident person. And when I was going through my bachelor's degree, every time that I was confronted with the option of study this, which more people study and have expertise in, or study this, which is harder, but fewer people have expertise in it, I always chose this one.
Okay.
And it wasn't because I'm some like sadist or masochist. Which one's the one where you hate yourself? I don't know.
Masochist, yeah.
Masochist. It's not because I'm a masochist, but it's because, well, fewer people are over here. That's less that I have to compete with, and then fewer people that can show me up, right?
Okay.
And
it wasn't that. It wasn't that. I'm so great. I'm going to take the harder challenge. Okay.
Oh, no. Not that. So here was the process, right? Study theology or study Greek. Well, I mean, it's like everybody studies theology. Fewer people study Greek. I don't study Greek.
Okay.
So then it was study Greek or study Hebrew. Well, I mean, like everybody studies Greek. Fewer people study Hebrew. I study Hebrew.
Yep.
But then it was study Hebrew and Aramaic or study Akkadian. Well, I mean, how many people study Akkadian?
So few.
Do Akkadian.
Totally.
And it was study Akkadian or study Sumerian. Well, I mean, like, what is Sumerian? Nobody does that. I'm going to do Sumerian. Then it was study the regular dialect of Sumerian or study the sub-dialect of Sumerian. Well, obviously, I'm going to study the sub-dialect. Then it was study the sub-dialect of Sumerian in its normal script or study the sub-dialect of Sumerian in its unorthographic spellings. Well, I obviously write my dissertation on that. That's what I wrote my dissertation on. So where is it that feeling like constant imposter syndrome will get you? Well, it will get you writing unorthographic texts in a sub-dialect of Sumerian from the old Babylonian city of Kish. That's where it's going to get you.
That's where it gets you. Okay. And then it gives us Dr. Bowen.
That's right. Gives you me. Now, what's cool about that is I think, so I published the dissertation as a popular book.
You did?
Yeah. So learning to pray in a dead language. Oh, there's the camera right there. Yeah. Education and invocation in ancient Sumerian. And basically my dissertation was about these tablets. And here's what cuneiform looks like for everybody. That's that you probably can't see that, can you?
There you go. That's good. Yeah.
That's a cuneiform. It's obviously not a real cuneiform tablet, but it's wedge-shaped writing. And what I wrote my dissertation on was scribes. And scribes, the way that scribes learned to be scribes, like we had ancient schools. So back in the late third millennium BCE, you have scribal schools, and these mid-level bureaucrats all have to go to scribal education. But by the time you get to and it was probably like like an actual sort of larger formal school. Like we have a Sumerian text called School Days, and it's about a boy that goes to school every day, and his mother packs his lunch for him.
Are you
Right?
serious?
And he goes off to school, and he doesn't write the signs correctly, and so he gets caned. Right, and he speaks out in class with that, and so he gets caned, and he goes out in the hall without asking, he gets caned. Right, and so finally he goes back home, and his teacher, his professor, comes over to his house, and they treat him really well, so that and now he becomes the prize student, right? And so, but sorry, so the reason that Sumerian and Akkadian are so fascinating is that we have the actual tablets.
Huh.
Right? When you're working with Greek or Hebrew manuscripts,
that stuff falls apart.
And you're working with much, much later manuscripts, right? Sometimes way later.
Right.
You can see the thumbprints of the scribes in the clay. And so, and we've got 500,000 of them.
Holy shit, I didn't know that many.
Tablets. Yeah. Like there are so many tablets that just haven't been translated yet.
Right. Yeah.
Because how many people do Assyriology, right? It's just not that many.
There was
but there's so much cool stuff. So what I did is I in my dissertation, scholars before me have been able to lay out, based on the tablets that we find in scribal schools, you can not only see what a scribe did to learn to read and to write, was they memorized compositions and they copied them out. So like we have tablets that, let's say, are like this size, right? Size of a hand. And on one half, there'd be a line in the middle, obviously not in this one, but there'd be a line in the middle. And on this side, there'd be really nice print, nice print, nice writing, clearly by a teacher, by a professor. And on this side, you have like the students clunky trying to copy it out.
Right.
And if you turn it this way, you can see that this side is really, really thin.
Because it's been wiped down.
They'd wipe it down and do it again, wipe it down and do it again.
Oh,
so what they did is, based on the compositions that they found on these tablets, they were able to reconstruct the curriculum at some of these major cities.
What?
So, yeah, we know what they learned in school and what order they learned it in.
Seriously?
Yeah. So
that's amazing.
So that's the first half of this book, is just going through what the compositions were, how they learned, and then like how they did it. But then the second half deals with prayer, because there's another group of, it deals with two groups of people, the scribes and priests.
Okay.
So scribes talks all about like how they learned their craft and what they did, but priests, there's a particular type of priest in Mesopotamia called a Gala priest. And a Gala priest, everything was made out of mud brick. All the buildings were made out of mud brick. Okay. And mud brick, it lasts like 50 years. And then they have to do major renovations,
right? Yeah. Take out a wall, redo a wall, that kind of thing.
So if you build your temple, which they did, out of mud brick, it means every 50 years, you got to like redo it. Well, gods don't like that.
Oh,
that's their house. Yeah.
Right.
You don't want to go mess with their house. So what they thought was that, well, when we tear this section of the building down to rebuild it, or take the whole thing down to rebuild it, the god might leave. And if the god leaves, he's the one holding back chaos.
Right.
Or she's the one holding back chaos.
Yes.
And so what we've got to do is make sure, however we do that, make sure the god doesn't leave when we go do this thing, like mess with their house, or take the I don't want to call it the idol, statue
Yeah.
out on procession, ritual procession or something.
Right.
Gods,
Respectful.
we might jostle it or something, you know, we might say something and they'll leave. Right. We don't want them to do that.
Right.
So the job of the gala priest was the text says, calm the heart of the angry deity.
Huh.
And the way that they did it is they sung to them.
Huh.
And they sung what are called laments. And the book of Lamentations in the Hebrew Bible is a lament.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in the same genre. And what it does is the gala priest is essentially singing to the god all the bad things that would happen if the god left. It's like an early country song, right? My truck will break down, God. My dog will die, right? My wife will leave me.
Get mad at me. Yeah.
The beer's going to dry up. Like, please don't leave, right? If you leave, this is all the bad stuff that'll happen.
Oh my God.
And so getting to my dissertation, there's a city called Kish. And at the city of Kish, they found all of these really small, fragmentary, cuneiform documents. And they're these laments, fragments of these songs written by the gala priest, I think by the gala priest. And, but they're written as you would pronounce them, not as they're actually spelled. So the example that I always give is the word dogs.
Okay.
Right. If I were to spell dogs, I would spell D-O-G-S. But if you say it, like spell it phonetically, you would say D-O-G-Z.
Okay. Okay.
It's because we say dogs, not dogs.
Right.
So these texts were written as you pronounce them. And the example that I give is graduation.
Okay.
If you've ever seen anybody like MC a graduation or whatever you call that, they have people write out phonetically their name.
Right.
So if I were to write out my name, I would write like JAH dash SHOE dash WAH, Joshua.
Okay. Right.
So you might read that and have no idea what the word is, but you would pronounce it correctly.
Correctly. Yes. Yeah.
That's what these texts were.
Okay.
So my question in my dissertation is, why are they written like this?
Right.
Anyway.
Right.
So what I'm doing is I'm making the connection between scribal training and these gala priests, because I think the gala priests were initially these trained as scribes.
Okay.
And so all of there are a lot of religious texts that they end up, these myths like Gilgamesh, the myths like that, they copy them to learn their scribal art.
Okay.
And when that person became a gala priest, I think that they brought obviously a lot of that training and that ideology or that theology over to them. And so anyway, I'm looking at the connections between those. So
fascinating.
Anyway.
Yeah. But I'm also thinking I'm like, wait, doesn't someone who needs to spell something phonetically, doesn't that mean that they're not literate? But that's not right either. That's not right either.
That's what makes this. So here's my thesis.
Okay.
It's not the person writing it.
Yeah.
I didn't know it.
Yeah. Right. It's the person who needs to read it.
People at this time, Sumerian was dead when these texts were written.
Okay. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So Sumerian became like Latin.
Gotcha.
It was transmitted. It was really sacred. Transmitted in writing, but the only people that could speak it were scribes because they were the only ones that got trained in it.
Okay, yeah.
Or gala priests, obviously, which is again why I think. But
yeah. Okay.
But one of the things that I noticed in these tablets is that so both Sumerian and Akkadian are written in cuneiform. They're written with these wedge-shaped signs, but they're not related languages. Akkadian is a Semitic
I didn't
language.
think they were, and that's why I was like, wait, I didn't know that they were both written
That's right.
with reeds, right? An angle reed or something like
That's
that.
right.
Yeah.
So, Akkadian has certain sounds that Sumerian doesn't use.
Okay.
And vice versa.
Okay.
These tablets are written and they produce sounds. They're writing Sumerian words.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
but they're using
Akkadian.
Akkadian sounds to reproduce them.
Fascinating.
So what I posited, and I mean, like, am I right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, but way to go. You found something.
What I argued was that there were people that played instruments. There were people that sang. And that, like, people had parts in some of these, like, because some of these things were acted out. And if you're an Akkadian speaker, but you have to pronounce Sumerian out loud, it's like if I wanted somebody to be part of a bar mitzvah,
right,
and I wanted them to pronounce some Hebrew, but they didn't know Hebrew. I would write it in English like it's pronounced.
Yes.
And they wouldn't have any idea what they were saying.
No clue at all.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
But the important thing is that God
would hear it correctly.
So
Isn't
that's
that
what
wild? I love it. I love it because partly because we can relate to it today, right? That's like 5,000 years ago. 4,500.
That's right.
Still same things still happening today, right? In the terms of the issues of across languages. But also that was happening so much earlier than what people who are interested in biblical things are so much earlier. The same issues still apply, the same approach to the gods, right? The same keeping them happy.
Yep.
This is nothing new. In fact, it's really, really quite old at this point.
Yes.
Very interesting. Yeah. Very interesting. Thank you for getting into that, diving into that.
Thank you for letting me ramble about it.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, some people say they like to come on here because they actually get to talk about what they've done or what they love to do or something. But that's great. If it makes you, keeps you happy, because I'm curious.
If it pacifies my heart.
Right. It makes it easy for you to come here, then I'll take it. Right. There are a couple there are two questions that did come up, and I didn't jump on the first one at the time because I didn't want to interrupt the flow, and then I forgot to go back to it. So we had a couple. Thank you for the super chats. Vadim Radchenko, and I hope I did okay with that. Radchenko. Dr. Beard. So apparently, do you know this? Do you know Vadim or no? I don't know because
I don't know.
Dr. Beard is funny, playful, and so I thought maybe there was some history there. Which church's history did you study? I'm used to Catholic unis like LUMSA. I don't know what that. I don't know what this. Where answer is obvious.
So it was certainly, focused on Protestantism, like. It's a very fundamentalist school. So they were like, they pointed out every chance they got the word Catholic means general.
Right. Small c. Yeah, it would be interesting to do church history from a Catholic perspective, I think, because I learned a Protestant version as well, and there's certainly no love. I mean, the Orthodox and Catholic didn't get a great shake, I'd say, not a fair shake in our world. Thank you, Claude Simeon, for the super chat. Dr. Josh should dye beard and hair gray and look even more like David Strathern in Monk when he plays the chess grandmaster who offs his wife. Okay. Do you know who he's talking about? I don't know. David Strathern in Monk.
I remember that episode, like in the show Monk.
I think that's what I
don't know who David Strath.
I don't either.
I mean, I might know him. I just don't know the name.
Yeah, exactly. I could pull it up real quick. Do an image.
Oh, yes.
Do you know?
I do. I do remember the episode. Yeah, Monk goes and plays chess, and he's.
Oh, I didn't know that was his name. Okay, I like this guy a lot.
Well, so sorry. So Monk is Tony Shalhoub.
Yes,
but the person that he plays.
The guy who's
yeah. But I'm trying to picture his face.
Yeah.
I mean, he must be like ruggedly handsome.
Yes, for sure he is. Is that picture jog enough of a memory?
Yeah.
I
definitely remember him now. Yeah.
That was my favorite with him. But okay. So sending you some love. Sending you some love is what's going on here. Okay. I also need to just say you slid in there that early on in this conversation that you have MS, which I was sorry to learn of that for you. And I'm just gonna say that. I wanted to make sure I didn't let that go uncommented on. I don't know. How long have you known? Is this a recent diagnosis, or
No,
you've known a long time?
2012, I
Okay.
think I
Okay.
found out,
Yeah.
and I'm so I'm very fortunate in this sense because when they told me I was 30, I think I was 30, and my neurologist said, he did the MRI. So what happened is I was studying for finals with my friend Caleb Howard,
Oh.
and uh, I was over at his house. I used to go spend the night at his house for like 3 days, and we would just drink whiskey and study. That's what we do. I don't know how that combination worked, but it did.
But somehow it did.
And
Okay. Uh-huh.
it's how I did. And um, and I remember if you've ever had your contact kind of go blurry,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
yeah.
you're like blinking, trying to
Oh,
get it to square up,
yeah.
and it didn't. And so
Interesting.
I didn't. We were studying so hard, like I didn't even. Oh, all right, I'll take the contact out when I go to bed. So I took the contact out, went to bed, woke up the next morning, put it back in, and I was like, "Wait, it's still blurry."
Huh.
So I made an appointment with the eye doctor to try to figure out like what's wrong with my contacts.
Mm.
Such an
Yeah.
idiot.
Well, yeah, it was like, I'd rather it be that too,
Right,
if
right, right,
it was
right.
happening to me.
So of course, they had me do an MRI, and anyway, so they told me you have MS, and statistically, because it's hitting you at this stage in your life, the likelihood is that it's going to be very aggressive.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh.
Yeah, and so they said be prepared to be in a wheelchair in 6 months.
Oh, oh, holy
Yeah. So I like
wow.
I have things that are wrong with me. I mean, obviously, I have things that are wrong with me. You heard the story with Megan, but MS related things that are wrong with me.
Gotcha, yeah.
But so I'm basically blind in my left eye.
Okay, okay. Huh.
And my left arm goes numb and locks up.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
but it's stuff that and I have tons of memory problems, and it's one of
Okay.
the reasons that I don't debate one on one,
Aha.
because anytime I feel any stress,
Oh,
it
yeah.
makes my memory just awful. I can't
Gone.
remember anything.
Okay.
Uh,
Interesting, yeah.
so that's why I have to have a partner, so I could let them handle all the stress, and then I just kind of chime in when I need to.
Feed in. Okay.
But yeah, but
Huh.
most of that stuff I've kind of learned to. I have really high sensitivity to the heat, so my body will like
Huh.
shut down if I get too hot.
Uh-huh.
But I've learned to manage all of that, and most people can't see it. So I feel like I'm very fortunate in that regard.
Yeah,
So
right.
yeah, but
It's not
thank you.
utterly debilitating, and
Right.
you're able to manage, and
Mm.
well, thank you for that too. Goodness. Yeah. Um, we did discuss a time, and we have gone over it, so I wanna respect your time because you are, so gracious in giving it to me and to the people watching this, live and later, so
It's been so
I
much fun.
oh, good. It's so fun to talk with you and to learn more about you. Yeah.
If people are interested, since
Yeah.
to tie it back to Sumerian one last time, if people are
Sure.
interested in either learning Sumerian or learning biblical Hebrew, or even learning like Middle Egyptian, Megan has organized courses that we teach on Digital Hammurabi. So I'm teaching 3 classes this semester.
Are you?
I have
Wow.
I have a Hebrew 1 class. I have a Hebrew class that's in their 3rd semester, and then
Nice.
I'm teaching Sumerian 1. So Megan and I wrote. That's how brilliant she is. She
Yeah,
didn't get a
yeah.
chance to finish her PhD, but she's
Mhm.
helped me write Sumerian grammars. And
Right.
I'm halfway through writing a learn to read biblical or ancient Hebrew,
Nice.
like a Hebrew grammar.
Yeah.
Yes, but yeah, if people are
Nice.
interested, if you Google Digital Hammurabi language classes,
Nice.
there's like a landing page. But we have an Egyptologist that teaches Middle Egyptian.
So
So
cool.
yeah,
I actually
and
thought about taking that because I wanna get some of these languages too, if I could.
yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah.
So
Anything else about reaching you or the work you're doing that you'd like to
I mean, I
mention?
always, everybody definitely go check out Megan on the Misquoting Jesus podcast. Like that's I'm just waiting for that to. Yeah, I don't know if you watched any of this like Wes Huff stuff that's happened recently.
Someone brought one of them to my attention and was like, Kip did. He's like, could you please go address this? And I was like, sure, it just isn't my wheelhouse this week to do it. But anyway.
Right. But I mean, like this guy has blown up and I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting for Megan's moment because I think that thing is just gonna take off. So
nice. That would be nice, wouldn't it?
It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, it would.
But thank you so much for having me on, Jennifer. I really appreciate it.
Dr. Josh, thank you for being here. It's been an honor and a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm gonna kick you out.
Okay.
If you'll hang on backstage, that'd be great. Thank you all for being here with us. I wasn't looking at the chat today because I was just so into the conversation. So if you had some comments that were fun, that it would have been, I do like to normally put some comments up. Sorry, I wasn't doing that today. So, yeah, here's a fun one here at the end. I love how much of a wife guy he is. Absolutely Twitter pated for good reason. Yeah, it is lovely. Yeah, he's a lovely person. Thank you all for being here. I will be back next week and picking up where we left off in the book of Acts. The week after that is Dr. Walsh, and 2 weeks after that is Francesca. It's Dr. Stavropoulou. It's a beautiful name, but it's a bit of a mouthpiece. Full mouth. What am I trying to say? Just end it, Jen. Just end it. Okay. Thanks for being here. Thank you for all the ways you all support me in being here, chatting with each other, telling friends about some of the work I do, supporting me both in Patreon and also in memberships here. I'm very grateful to you for all of it. So I'll see you next week. We're going to go out with this.